Uh, can you hear me? I'm gonna share my slides and have that on like that. Right. Um, yes, thank you, Carol, and thank you, Philip. Wait, can I continue to share? Continue to share. All right. Can everyone see what I'm sharing? I hope so, because I can't see anyone now. Yeah, thank you everyone for this. This has been a wonderful event. It's always a pleasure to talk about cartoons. I'll just a little disclaimer. I think I'm coming down with something. So if I sound a bit off, just it's probably some kind of virus affecting me, which is yeah, it's the season for that. So wait, can I change the slides? Sorry, I'm having a bit of technical issues here. All right, there we go. So I'll start just by introducing myself. My name is Pedro Veliça. I am originally from Portugal, but currently I live in Gothenburg in Sweden. And my day job is that I'm a lead scientist in the process development team of a company called CCRM Nordic. And what we do is that we help other companies and academics to develop their cell and gene therapies all the way to clinical trials. So it's a really cool job. But today, we're not really talking about my day job. We're talking about what I do in the evenings in my pajamas, which is that I make silly science cartoons that I publish online under the name of Pedromics. And you might have seen my work online. They're kind of cartoonish and colorful. They're usually about science and scientists, but a lot is, I'm a biologist, so it's a lot about biology, cells, and a lot about immunology, which is my favorite topic. So today I just wanted to say how I became a science cartoonist. And to do that, I have to go all the way back to 1984 when I was born. So I am this chubby baby. I think this is from the day that I turned 1 year old. And being born in 1984 means that I am a millennial, but I am actually a borderline millennial. So we're like the first edition of the millennials. And the definition of a millennial is that we were the first generation to grow up with the internet. But if you're born in 84, the internet really only showed up when we were like 12, 13, and we're talking about dial-up internet, GeoCities, Yahoo, so very primitive stuff. And this means that for most of my childhood, I had a technology-free life, which also meant that I was often a bored child. So this is me with my parents. I have no siblings. So often I found myself with nothing to do, and because there were no screens and there was no um, um, tablets to entertain me, my parents instead just said, "Here's a pen, here's a paper," and what I did is I draw. And this has been something I've done my whole life. I really enjoy it. It's sort of like a safe space. I never wanted to pursue it as a main career because to me, I wanted to stay as a hobby, which is why I find it very entertaining that my side, thing as a cartoonist has actually taken off in the form of Pedromics. So, in the beginning of the current millennium, as I like to put it, I went to university to study biology. And this is my when I had my first encounter with science. And you can see it's my first encounter because I'm still bothering to wear lab coats, which my colleagues here have already kind of dismissed completely. And this is where I first start to merge my interest in drawing with the things I was learning in science. And this, I'll just show you one cartoon from my, this is probably my first science cartoon. It's from 2003. And if you see it, it looks already very basic. So I was just learning about cells. These cells have no structure, no nucleus, and for some reason they're floating in a raft on a cover slip. And the cartoon is in Portuguese because I was still living in Portugal, but I will translate. One cell is saying, "I'm telling you, the world is round." And the other one is saying, "No, believe me, it's flat," which, of course, haha, they're sitting in a cover slip. So it's not a great joke. And also, it's not a great scientific joke, but you can see that how my brain is starting to work. So shortly after I finished my studies, I moved abroad to initially to do an internship. So this is when I became an immigrant, and I still am an immigrant 20 years later. And in this internship in Imperial College, I was learning a lot of new science stuff. So the cartoons kept merging with what I was learning. For example, this cartoon from 2006 I remember it clearly because I had just learned about transgenic mouse strains. So I thought, wouldn't it be funny if there was a Transgenics Anonymous support group where all the mice can sit in the evening and just, confess about how they're being treated. So we have one of them saying, "Hi, my name is Mark, and I have a point mutation on P53." And of course, at this point, I'm writing my cartoons in English because I'm learning science in English. So that was a big change for me. After this internship, I started my PhD, so I became a grad student at the University of Birmingham, and now you can see I am full scientist because I'm no longer wearing a lab coat. I am so cool. And when you're a PhD, you're, thinking science, doing science all the time, learning a lot, talking to your colleagues. There's a lot of incubation time, so it's a lot of times that I need to fill. And again, when I'm bored, I'm drawing. So I would draw cartoons on ice boxes. And then my colleagues would find it funny, so I put it into paper. And there's quite a few cartoons that came up from this period. I'll just show you a few. This one is from 2010, and it's because one of my colleagues, I think he either mispronounced or misspelled mitochondria as mitochondria, and I thought, hilarious. So I made a superhero called Mitochondrion, as you can see here. And of course, with great ATP comes great responsibility. Uh, in my PhD, I had to do a lot of molecular cloning. So my model organism was E. coli. So I thought, what better way to pay my respects to this lovely bacteria? Uh, I'm just going to put it on the cover of a beauty magazine. So this is a cartoon from from that. And this is also when I made this cartoon, which eventually became sort of like the logo of Pedromics. It has a virus and retrovirus, and it's dressed retro. People often point out this is a bacteriophage, and to that I say whatever. And I remember having the idea for this cartoon because again I heard the word retrovirus for the first time. I thought that's just a virus with with a handlebar mustache. So I Googled things. Someone must have done this joke already. This is such an obvious gag, and I couldn't find anything. So I thought, okay, I'll do it, and I did it, and ironically became my first viral cartoon. And this is before social media. So people would like send this cartoon by email to each other. And I had colleagues and friends that would go to other universities and they would say, look, I found your cartoon printed and on the wall in this lab. So it was kind of a strange sensation to see a cartoon just travel like that. And this is in the pre-social media era. But of course, the internet kept evolving, and now we're like in the 2010s. Facebook's here, social media is popping up. So one of my friends said, instead of just emailing cartoons to us like a boomer, why don't you just create a Facebook page and you just upload your cartoons there and we can see it? And I thought, fun, that's a fun way to share cartoons with my friends. I created a Facebook page in 2013 and I named it Pedromics. And the name is basically a joke with, you have transcriptomics, you have genomics, you have proteomics, and I thought Pedromics. And then years later, someone pointed out that it's because it's Pedro's comics, right? So I thought, yeah, why not? And as I said, initially I thought this would be just to show cartoons to my friends, but the internet is a crazy place. And in a space of a few years, the followership of the page grew up to 65,000 people, which I know for today's standards of influencer, this is peanuts, but it's not like I'm doing makeup tutorials or anything that is kind of mainstream. It's a very niche type of thing, cartoons about biology and science and molecular biology. So the fact that I could gather such an audience is a testament to how social media works. And it's also more people than the town that I grew up in, which I still amazes me. Of course, eventually Facebook became the place where old men yell at clouds, so I stopped publishing so much there. There was a period that I was quite active on Twitter, both as a science cartoonist, but also as a scientist. It was actually there was a nice period with you could build a community, and I would find papers, I would share my cartoons, but then of course this guy came along, and I'm out. I'm not there anymore. And currently, I'm publishing mostly on Instagram. But again, this is the winds of social media are always changing, and it could be that we're maybe coming to a point where this is no longer how we spend our time. Maybe that's a good thing. But I have to say, I actually benefited a lot from social media. So I will just say this: social media is terrible for most things. but it's great for finding your niche because the same algorithm that connects conspiracy theorists and neo-Nazis and all these horrible people also helps people find very niche, very specific cartoons about science and people that find this funny. So I've done this kind of presentations occasionally over the years, and I always get asked about the process, and I never have anything ready. So this time I decided to prepare something. Uh, but now seeing how everyone else who presented before me are such professionals, this is going to look very basic, and it is. But this is how I do it. Again, I have no actual formal training in any kind of illustration. This is all just kind of self-taught. But what I do is I sketch on paper. I am that old-fashioned. I like to kill trees. But I usually do a sketch with a blue pencil, and then I use pens and brushes to ink the lines and put the final lines into it. And then I digitalize it. And when it's in the computer, you can very easily remove the pencil part. It's you don't need to be going around rubbing things off with a rubber. Again, I'm talking like a boomer. I understand that. And then I use an open source software called GIMP to color my cartoons. Again, not very sophisticated. I'm very basic stuff. And then the last thing to do is to add the joke. So I made this specifically for this presentation. So it's not my greatest work, but it's meant to be a neutrophil called Neutral Phil, and he has no opinion in this particular political topic. I've actually shared this on my Instagram on the weekend, and within 5 minutes of it being online, someone pointed out that this is not a neutrophil, this is an eosinophil. So yeah, the internet is brutal, and especially with typos, which I also do a lot. So if you have not seen my stuff online, I'll just show you kind of the flavors of kind of the cartoons that I make. The majority of what I produce is basically puns and wordplay about science or dad jokes about science. Unfortunately, that's just how my mind works. When I learned about real-time PCR, what I really wanted to be doing was surreal time PCR in a sort of like Dali-esque laboratory. When I learned about the box and whisker plots, all I could think of was cats inside boxes looking at you in pure contempt. And of course, if we have gram-negative and gram-positive bacteria, we're bound to at some point find Instagram-positive bacteria that like to post selfies and use hashtags. Then I have cartoons that I like to classify as somewhat educational or accidentally educational. And my favorite is this one, and mostly because I am an immunologist and this has great significance to me, which is the presentation of the antigen. So this is obviously referencing the Adam and God painting in the Sistine Chapel, which has been referenced a few times today in this summit. But it's representing when the T cell, which is the adaptive immune component of our immune system, and the dendritic cell, which is part of the innate immune system, they touch. And this is a central point of how our immune system works, how we fight viruses, how we generate antibodies. It's just a central part of immunology. And I know for a fact that some big shot proper professors have used this cartoon in conferences to illustrate this point, which fills me with joy given my background. Then you have this one is a more molecular kind of joke. It's a joke, but you're explaining something in the meanwhile. So you start with a little ribosome, which looks like a coconut for some reason, and is reading an mRNA molecule. And as it reads the mRNA, it adds the amino acids to the protein. And as it's going along, it starts spelling an insult. It spells pig face, and suddenly the ribosome realizes, turns around, and finds that it was a little prank from the nucleus. And the most difficult part about this cartoon was actually being able to write an insult in amino acids, because of course they don't cover the entire alphabet. So it was very limited. I actually spent more time trying to find an insult than making the cartoon. And then if you remember COVID, that little thing that happened a few years ago, this cartoon is from like mid 2020, and when the whole world was learning about immunology for involuntary reasons. And what we see here is a COVID virus that is kind of lurking, trying to find a cell to infect. And then it finds a cell that expresses the appropriate receptor, which, if you remember, it was called ACE2, and it is about to engage with the receptor to start an infection, but an antibody comes flying and attaches to the virus and blocks it from entering the cell. And then it turns around to find a B cell looking super heroic, saying, "You've been blocked." And this was around the time that people were finding out about neutralizing antibodies that we developed after infection and eventually after vaccination. So COVID was obviously a terrible time, but as an immunologist and as an illustrator, it offered a lot of opportunities to make really fun cartoons. And I hope that they helped to explain immunology to people. But judging by the amount of conspiracy theories around it, I think it didn't cause much effect. One thing I do a lot as well, as many of the people who have spoken here today, is commission work, which is when someone comes to me and they want to do a specific cartoon about their research. And this is one of my favorite things to do, actually, because that means you have to, as it was mentioned before here today, you have to talk to the scientists and you have to learn about their science and you have to find sort of a compromise between something that is visually arresting but is still true to the science that is trying to explain. And it's often difficult to convince scientists to let go of details and replace details with more emotional language, because that's most scientists want to keep all the details. But it's been a lot of fun. It's mostly been for thesis covers or for journal covers. But this kind of work has actually gone down quite a bit since obviously since the appearance of generative AI, which is maybe something we can discuss in the session afterwards. One last thing is that I like explaining science with cartoons. I often have to give presentations at work, but also sometimes I'm lucky enough to be engaged to explaining science to people outside. And in this case, if I have the time, I like to use my cartoons to explain what I'm doing. Uh, because I think they make it more engaging. They look different. It's kind of like a refreshing compared to the usual PowerPoint shapes and kind of like more serious illustrations. And I usually get very good feedback that people actually retain information, and I think the cartoons are carrying a lot of weight here. And I'm also very proud that in a couple of occasions, I managed to squeeze my squiggly lines into very serious journals, as you can see here. So I will wrap it up now. I will just leave with a little thought that science and cartoons go very well together. I think if you are here attending this symposium, I'm preaching to the choir. You already think that this is great, but I think more people think the same. They just if they get exposed to it, because cartoons make complex topics more accessible, and it kind of takes the seriousness out of it, and people feel more relaxed about it, I think. Drawing skills is a plus. It's nice to make nice cartoons, but it's not necessary. There's quite a few science comics out there, and some are basically just stick figures. I'm thinking XKCD, which is one of my favorite science comics out there. So it's not always absolutely necessary to be excellent at drawing. The ideas are more important. And then, of course, social media is a great tool to find your niche. So if you have something and you think people will like it, or even if you just want to try the waters, social media will get you there. And I'm not usually a big proponent of social media, but for this specific purpose, I think it's great. So with that, I say thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and thank you, Philip, for inviting me. That's my email. I sometimes people try to message me on Instagram. I'm very bad at checking those messages, so email is the preferred method. So I will stop sharing now. There we go. And it is now my pleasure to introduce the next speaker. I won't be very verbose because I'm sure he will want to introduce himself. But the next speaker is Brian Whelm from Salt Lake City, Utah, and he will tell us about his amazing science sculptures.